Hello and welcome to another episode of Gallery Watch. I'm Nadia Hunter and I'm here today at Baratti Fine Arts Studio to see a collaboration of works by various artists, and the exhibition is called The Langvert. Can you tell me a little bit more about the exhibition today and some of the artists involved?
Sure. Well, the concept of the exhibition is the presentation of what I see being one of our earliest visual languages that permeated art through the probably 1400s through the 1600s particularly, and it was emblematic art and the concept of creating an image that both communicates and conceals information. And the main subject that warranted that concealment and communication was alchemy at the time, which is essentially a metaphor for the transformative nature of people and the union of elements and the spiritual elevation of the individual. All of the artwork in the exhibition is inspired by that overall concept and those ideas, and also by the visual and artistic traditions that came out of that communication and concealment through art history. So obviously works that were inspired by the early etchings of Michael Meyer, through to the tartans of Scotland, through to probably the mother of all alchemical tables, the Gnostic Altar. Probably the mother of all alchemical tables, the Gnostic Altar, or the Eastern Altar of the Gnostic Church, which was designed by Aleister Crowley in 1913. The symbolism of the altar itself is, you literally can talk for days about it. Everything from the 3 steps, the checkered floors, to the three super altars, the sun blaze, the 8 fleur-de-lis, the red velvet. It's a beautiful manifestation of a transformation in itself. This piece was also exhibited in Sydney with the National Trust of Australia at the S.H. Irving Gallery.
Tell me a little bit more about the altar. I mean, is that the Eye of Horus in a sun with the fleur-de-lis next to it? Like, what is the symbolism behind those two?
Well, these essentially, you've got the fleur-de-lis, which is an ancient sign of motherhood, and it's arranged in the 8-pointed star. At the centre of that is a symbol which is endured throughout history, and is most closely, essentially equated with the order of the AA. There's been a lot of great minds at work in designing this temple, one of which was Stephen J. King, who gave a great amount of direction in the vision for the pyramidical structure.
Fantastic piece. Very lucky to have it here.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's a fitting centerpiece for the concept, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. able to tell me a little bit more about these pieces behind you, particularly this one? This is my definite favourite, already sold.
It's beautiful subject, these pieces. They're actually based on a text called Attilater-Fugens, which was written by Michael Meyer and illustrated by sort of his preferred etcher artist of the period. This was in the 1600s, and there are 52 emblematic images in total. And this particular piece is about the union of the sun and the moon, and or the male and female, the active and the passive, essentially the union of the elements. This particular image I keep going back to and studying and looking at and trying to draw and wrap my head around. But the original etching just had such a simplicity and beauty in it. Effectively, it's sort of the father heir, and in his belly is the initiate being born or about to be born into a new world. This particular work is the salamander, which is a symbol for transformation, the heat, the fire. And so you're really only seeing 3 of 52 works that tell the whole story of transformation. But it's one of the earlier records that we have of alchemical research. And Michael Meyer was a Renaissance man. He was an advisor to kings, and he was one of the early scientists, and just one of those great thinkers. And understood transformation within the human and the spiritual life, and how it integrated with the literary life and the artistic life. So he certainly brought those together and made a lot of inroads in his lifetime. For that reason, these images have always fascinated me, as they have for many artists. So I think they're an interesting addition to the exhibition amongst a lot of other alchemical inspired pieces.
Yes. So tell me a little bit more about the technique that's been used here.
It's basically just pen on board, and using also acrylic paints underneath. But the reason for using board, it's being inspired by etching in its most basic form, ground etching. It just gives that lovely sort of, you're literally carving into a board as you're drawing, and you go through hundreds of pens basically doing it, but it's but there's no better way to sort of connect with the surface and connect with the subject, because you're literally destroying the board as you're drawing as well, and regenerating it with an image. We've got some amazing artists in the guild, guys working across film, sound, painting, etching, photography, mixed media, performance. So it's becoming a really cohesive, tight, and respected experimental guild concept. So it's not unlike the old guilds of decades and centuries gone, where everybody sort of works together and exhibits together, and works on shows like this, curating concepts and bringing out something a little bit different.
How do you feel about exhibiting tonight?
Pretty excited, actually. I work as a graphic designer, so quite often, like, my work's always doing as it does, out there. It's mostly corporate work and that, so it's really exciting to actually be able to put a bit more creativity into my work and something a bit more personal, which both these pieces are quite personal to me.
Can you tell me a little bit more about this one here?
This one in particular, there's a bit of a personal story, which I won't go into, but it also has another story as well. Basically, I'm really kind of interested in what they call I guess in some ways the dual peak or cycles of the feminine. And in the past, what is mostly focused on is the lily or the ovulation cycle, which is the Virgin Mary and those kind of things. What I'm focusing on with this image in particular is the menstruation cycle, actually, which is the other peak in the feminine, making sexuality more across the board as opposed to just something for procreation. So that's basically kind of the theme of what that particular one is about. This is basically quite a few different elements that I shoot photographic-wise, and then I montage them together. I work with Photoshop mostly.
And how long have you been doing that for?
I've probably been doing, I do a lot of Photoshop montaging for work, but it's mostly getting rid of, fluff out of, company executives.
It's more industrial.
It's more corporate. So more this creative stuff I've probably been doing for quite a few years now. Yeah. The other thing I actually really am interested in is astrology. This one here is actually the natal chart of the birth of the new eon, which is at 12 noon, Cairo, Egypt, on the 10th of April. This little story around this, using some descriptives from, it's a book by, or a reinterpretation by a guy called Dame Raja, who deals with the 360 visualizations of the circle or the astrological mandala. So I was really interested to look at these different degrees and see what the visions were, and I created a bit of a story, kind of entering into the solar system down through Pluto all the way down to the moon and to the man. So you can kind of read through these and they give you a bit of a feel about the new eon. He's kind of representative of the crown and conquering child, or in particular Hippocrates, who's the silent one. So I work in the creative industry, but kind of putting myself out there is a little bit different when it's something I actually more relate to as opposed to corporate world.
Well, don't go anywhere. We'll be back after a very short break.